Look up the word crazy in the dictionary, and you might just find an asterisk beside the definition that says, listen to the Subiquitous podcast featuring Sue Duffield, and you'll find out what crazy means. Sue's travelogue journey of unfiltered stories, impossible miracles, and faith-filled fun will be revisited right here. So buckle up and let's get going with this humorous travelogue of an unfiltered saint, Subiquitous.
It's always a good thing when you have a good friend join you on a podcast. She's a Jersey girl. Although I'm not sure, though, Toni, were you born in New Jersey, though?
Born and raised.
That's why we connect so well. But the last time you were on, we talked about your incredible book, Jesus Has Left the Building. What a great title. Just go over just a little bit what that book is about again, because our listeners are very loyal. They'll remember you and they want to say, you know what? Give me more, Toni. I want more.
Awesome. Well, actually, that was born out of an outreach ministry that I started at my former church. And that happened because I read a book called The Externally Focused Book, and it asked a question: if your church closed its doors tomorrow, would your city notice? Would it weep? And God just started nudging me. You've got to go out there. So the book kind of follows how the ministry got started, and then it details 12 different outreaches that your church can do. It gives the story and some stories of lives transformed from that. And then at the end, it's the nitty gritty. And that is how many volunteers it took, the timeline, the approximate cost, where you can try to find funds if you don't have startup capital. It is an extremely practical book. And as a matter of fact, it won 2 awards.
It should have, because I don't know of anybody that's doing what you just said.
The book did not exist.
See that?
It didn't. That's why I wrote it, because I
Yeah.
could not find a book that could help me like that.
Do you remember Zig Ziglar?
Yes.
And one of the most important things I ever heard him say was, if you can't find data or detail or any reading material on something that God has birthed in your heart, then you are the source to write it. And that's exactly what you did.
Amen. Yes.
And especially in this culture, right? I think of evangelical outreaches. Our church here in Nashville is so good at that. But there are some areas of ministry that they're not really that good. I would recommend any ministry leader to get this book. How can they get your book, Jesus Has Left the Building? How can they get that?
It is on Amazon, and you can also contact me through my website, tonicampbell.org.
Awesome. You know, you're just not a pretty face.
Oh, pshaw.
I know. So a new book is coming out. It's a compilation of 9 authors called Faithful in Every Season. This is going to be on my top 10 list to get when it comes out. So talk about this book.
Well, it came about, let me tell you that a little bit. We went to a She Speaks conference, and it was virtual. And a bunch of us met from all over the country in a break room during lunch and just started talking about the stories we had. And, you know, nobody was super famous with a great big platform, but we believed that we had things that needed to get out there that Jesus, wanted us to write. And so like I said, it boiled down to about 9 of us that went the distance. And it is a collection of stories, poems, and reflections of God's love and his enduring love throughout the seasons of life.
What an appropriate book, too, for women right now who are going through the seasons. And I didn't think about this until after it was over. I spoke in Dublin Gap at a retreat center out in central Pennsylvania, Toni. I should have invited you to come. I spoke on Every Season, Every Woman. What a great book that would be to have, at least for those that would like the follow-up of trying to understand the seasons of life and trying to go through one particular season. Let me ask you this personal question, Toni. What season of life are you in right now? What are some of the things that you're seeing in your heart and in your mind and in your soul? What kind of season are you in?
That's an interesting question, and I have a complicated answer.
You know what? That's why we're here.
Right.
Right.
Well, I would say spring in some ways, because new things are birthing. I am starting, to really expand the speaking ministry, continuing to write. and in some ways fall because my full-time position as a benevolence director at my church will be coming to an end in December of 2026. I will be stepping down and retiring. So, like I said, it's kind of, a juxtaposition of things, but it's all good.
It's all good. Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Do you find too that when you speak with women that they find themselves to be a mix of several seasons like you?
Yeah, I think that's possible because, maybe they're going through loss and that's kind of a winter season, but there's also, a new grandchild or a new child in the family. And so it's so easy for that to kind of offset each other. Yeah, definitely.
I think what attracted me, and I'm talking to my friends here, what attracted me to Toni from the get-go was her passion for Jesus, number one. And number two, you're so articulate and so well-read, and you have been involved in many different kinds of endeavors that have created the person that you are. But sometimes our listeners, Toni, like to know, what are some of the hurdles too? What are some of the difficulties that you've had to work through to get to that spring and possible fall season of your life where new beginnings and maybe putting to death some old things, but at the same time, what are the desires of your heart and how did you get here?
I have another compilation book called The Identity Effect.
Ooh, I love that.
My chapter is called Lost to Life. And in it, I start out by basically saying, who among us would wake up in the morning and say, I think I'd like to experience a little loss today. Maybe some unemployment or death or divorce or homelessness or, financial struggles, whatever it may be. And frankly, in my life, I have never been homeless, but I have faced that very real possibility. I've gone through all of that. Yeah. And so that's why I believe God is faithful in every season. But what he's birthing in my heart now, like I said, as I think about the opportunity to go from being one-on-one with people and helping them to being with larger groups of people and sharing the good news of Jesus and sharing how people can make a difference in others' lives. Can I tell you, I just heard a terrific story today. It was a reel that I saw on Facebook, and the pastor was talking about how what we do is so important, even the smallest of things. And he told the story about Mordecai Ham, who was a preacher in the 30s, had a tent revival ministry. And there were two young 14-year-old boys who heard the commotion, came over, and the tent was full and they didn't see a place. So they started to walk away. And an usher spotted them walking off and he ran after them, grabbed one of the boys and said, if you come back, I'll find you two seats together. And so he pushed, some people is a, kind of scrunched to the middle kind of thing. And the two boys sat down. And that night they both gave their lives to Christ. Wow. And one of those young men was Billy Graham. And so and the other one, I cannot remember his name, but it was someone who organized all the large, what's the word? Things that Billy did, all the
all
big
the crusades.
Thank you, crusade. That was the word. Yeah, I'm a writer. No. And that's okay. And he said, who was the important person here? Like it was not. He was like, it was the usher who nobody knows his name, but he stood in the gap and he took care of something that he saw. And that's what I really feel passionate about. That's kind of what Jesus Has Left the Building is about. Everybody can do something. Don't say my church is too small or we don't have any money. Look and see where you can fill in that gap. And that's the message that I want to bring to, people everywhere and to encourage ladies in particular who so often don't have a sense of value and self-worth. We either believe the lies, the labels that people have put on us, or we just don't think we have that much to contribute. And it doesn't take much. God equips the called, right?
Boy, he does.
Mm.
And you and I, even though we grew up in the same state, I didn't know you until just, several years ago. But here's the thing. Isn't it just a blessing to know that you and I, who had a dream and still have a dream, that even in the midst of turmoil and difficulty, and even going back years ago, whatever formation of our faith was, God has presented us with an opportunity to use our pen or to use our voice and to be an example to the world. And you're right. I'm still learning. I know you are. Every time I talk to you, you're going to some conference somewhere, I think.
This is true.
But it's good, and it's always good, and I think we have to do that. Speaking of conferences, there is a wonderful place that you and I just absolutely adore. It's called America's Keswick in Whiting, New Jersey, and Jeff and I are not really on staff. We probably should be. Being paid, yeah, I was going to say being paid would be great, but anyway, we have a wonderful mission through this incredible program that goes on there at America's Keswick. And apart from their Colony of Mercy and Barbara's Place that help addiction, a recovery of young people, older adults, whatever, they have what they call their conference ministry. And one of their aspects of their conference ministry is Girl Talk. And I love that Toni is going to be the featured speaker for Girl Talk in October. Tell me a little bit about what you're speaking on and what we're going to be doing and watching. This is going to be good.
Thank you. It is called Exercising Real Trust in God, because that is also a theme throughout my life. As I said, all that loss, if you don't I don't know how people go through life without trusting in God when they're faced with those kinds of things. But there are three main points that I wanted to bring up for real trust. And the first is that we need to remove our human attempts at trying to fix things, to do things. I say you need to trust, pray, and get out of God's way. So
that's good.
Thank you. My little sticky statement. And so that is, remove your hand, let God do what God does best.
Right.
And then you need to remember his faithfulness. And I'm going to talk about how, in the Old Testament, we read so often that when God met somebody in a powerful way someplace, they built an altar.
Yeah, they did.
And while we are not building altars of stone and earth, we can build an altar with that memory. And so, just recall back to that time when God really came through for you. And that helps you to make those decisions going forward because He's faithful. And you can point back to that. And then the third thing is to resolve to stand on his promises. There are so many in the Bible. So, he says he'll never leave us or forsake us. He tells us that we can do all things through him, when he strengthens us. And he does exceedingly abundantly more than we can ask or imagine. Like I said, there are just so many. And I give a little list of about 10 just to get people started so that they can start to write their own and claim them for themselves.
That's right. And ladies, they'll be around tables, I think.
Correct.
Won't they? So they'll be able to have their Bibles and their pen and their paper and taking notes. And this is so, I don't know, I would prefer that. I've spoken for conferences where it's more like a conference seating. I actually like when women are around tables. I think there's such a connective tissue that happens around the table. Do you give women a chance to respond when you're speaking, or do you give them like questions to fill out, or do you give them some sort of a follow-up process? I mean, this is something that I'm watching people that you and I adore, like Carol Kent and Carol McLeod and even Susie Larson, who ends with, here's some questions. Here's some things for you to write down. You already gave us the great 3 R's, but have you given opportunity for women to respond in any way like that?
In that particular talk, no. I am actually handling it 3 different ways at 3 different talks this weekend. So there is one that I will be speaking on Esther. and finding our identity and purpose in Christ. And that has, yes, that definitely has things that they can jot down, make note of. I will be
Nice.
challenging them, to think. And then when they go into their small groups, they can discuss further and pray. And then there's another that's on 2 Timothy 1:7, for he has given us not a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
Amen.
And so there are definitely places in that talk where it's like, okay, turn to your sister, give her, talk about one thing that you think maybe God is emboldening you to try, that kind of thing. So
And
I employ all those different.
I love it. I love it. And all the introverts in the room go, "Oh no,
Right.
don't make me talk to anybody." How would you rate yourself? Are you an introvert, or are you a mixture of an extrovert, introvert? What are you? Do you know?
I would actually say I'm a mixture, which might surprise some people. I think people generally would peg me as an extrovert.
Mm-hmm.
But when I am in a room of people I don't know, I'm not necessarily the first person to walk up and go, "Hey, I'm Toni Campbell, and your name is?" I kind of
Yeah.
wait for somebody to come over to me. But I'm definitely an extrovert.
Yeah. And I think the older we get, we kind of go in and out.
Yeah.
I know you would think, and everybody thinks that I'm just the raging extrovert ready to kill everybody that comes into the room with me. But the truth is, the older I get, Toni, I'm really very comfortable moving myself to the back of the room and watching and assessing and just kind of reading the room a little bit. When you talk about your first point, removing our hand, I think I had to remove my hand from God's hand in my personality. I had to go through just a little bit of a restructuring where I asked the Lord, give me the opportunity to be in a position where it's not about me, but I can make the person I'm talking to feel comfortable enough that I can share the gospel with. And when you said remove our hand for me to dictate, I think for years, and I don't know if you would like to include this or not, but I think for years it's just been one of those normal things for people who speak or sing or do all that, is to kind of take their own hand and do their own thing. And I love being 70 years young. I love it right now because I love the fact that I'm not as quick to take my hand and say, it's got to be done my way. I want it God's way. Yeah.
It's funny. I've joked and said if I ever write my memoir, it's going to be called Put Down the Microphone, because I really do believe that it's so funny that you're saying this, because this is part of the testimony I'm giving at one of these talks. And I felt when I was a teenager, I was young, God gave me a vision. I was on a very large stage. I was in front of a huge group of people.
Right.
And I loved to sing. As a matter of fact, I went to Westminster and I took voice lessons, and that was my major in college. And so I just assumed, okay, God's going to use this. He's going to use Christian music for me to advance his kingdom, and that's how he's going to use me. And so that I thought was my purpose. And it was my comfort zone. It's what I always did, always joined the worship team.
Right.
And I went to the church where I actually wrote this book, and I won't tell you the whole story, but anyway, things happened that I was not invited to be on the worship team. And I was offended.
Sure.
But I was like, this guy doesn't know my heart. He doesn't know my walk, blah, blah, blah. And then God, when I was praying through that hurt, he was kind of like, nope, he doesn't know your heart. He doesn't know your walk. And maybe it could have been done in a kinder manner, but he's protecting his ministry from the unknown. And 2 weeks later, somebody asked for people to come drive a van from a homeless shelter where women were having a Bible study on site there, but they now wanted to come to the church service. And I remember rolling my eyes and going, well, not doing anything else on a Sunday morning. I guess I might as well drive this van. I drove that van for 2 years before I
Wow.
got to pick up the microphone and
Oh,
sing in front of
man.
that church. And
Yep.
and God
Yep.
took those 2 years to show me that there was a different purpose for my life, and there were many other ways to serve him
Right.
beyond that.
That's right.
So, yeah, it
Oh, it's
definitely.
and so, and I know we're kind of going a little in a different direction, but I would call this almost a Holy Spirit led direction. Sometimes God puts us on the pew when we think we should be on the stage. And the reason that we're on the pew is because God has to do some things in us first. And I sat in a church several years. And basically, we've been going to a church here recently in the last 2 years, and we know hardly anyone. And it's a mega church. It's huge. It's a wonderful church. We love it. But it's been so freeing to be able to be kind of one of the normal people, for lack of a better word, not being recognized as a worship leader, as a singer. Nobody knows that. We don't even tell people that. We are there to worship God and to love Him. And I had a friend of mine who you would know, mutual friend, who said to me, "You've been going there 2 years and they haven't used you yet?" And I want to say, no, yes, they have. They have poured into me, and this pastor and this whole congregation has poured into me during a time where I didn't need to be recognized. And how great for you to have that in your wheelhouse, that I know that driving that van for 2 years was more about my servitude than it was for me trying to promote myself or to do something that where I could get some accolades, right?
Absolutely.
And I hope that the average person, and I call myself that too as well, I hope the person that desires ministry in their life and desires to be used of God understands that it's not always going to be the shiny lights, as Lucy Shaw says. Lucy Shaw said in one of her books years ago, and you would love this, Toni, she said, "I'm tired of glitzy, glamorous worship. Just just put me somewhere where I can close my eyes and meditate on God and not worry about the bells, the whistles, the lights, the smoke bombs, all that kind of stuff that we think attracts people into worship." You and I both know worship really isn't music anyway. Worship is a lifestyle. And so over the years, your second point that you're going to talk about at Girl Talk was remember. And I love that too. So we go back and we remember those things that were forming us where we are now. That driving of you in that van causes you to remember a time where God was preparing you.
Yes, absolutely. He expanded my heart. He opened my eyes to needs and to people. And you were talking about just kind of sitting back and leaving space for people to talk. And man, on those van drives, I heard life stories. I heard, it's easy to sometimes look at somebody in their current place and make judgment calls.
Yeah.
How did you get here? But when you hear what they've been through and you can just really feel for them and pray for them and pray with them, it's life-changing for you because it just gives you a different perspective.
It is. Yeah. So who are your heroes currently?
You ask hard questions.
I love it. I want to put you on the spot. Because you're such a good writer and your brain is bigger than God. I mean, it's just crazy sometimes. And so to absolutely send you into a tailspin, I love it. It's great.
I'm not often at a loss for words.
Yeah, it's all right. And that could be anything. You could go back in time, whatever. I know there's people that have poured into you in different kinds of ways, or maybe they don't even know you exist. Like I have a hero that's a writer that she doesn't even know I'm alive. But who are the people that have imparted great thought and great wisdom and great heart into you?
Well, my first thought was Priscilla Shire. I love her insight. I love her passion. I love her warmth. I love her stories.
Right.
I watch her and I think, it just comes out. She's not standing there reading notes. I mean, it just
that is true.
comes out. And that's because it's a life lived that matches those words. I mean, it's not just talk. She is living that day to day. One of my favorite writers, I think, is Liz Curtis Higgs. And
What a nut.
oh my goodness, she is. But
I know.
I love how she just sees the humanity in the story, and she just kind of, she just put her arm around your shoulders and says, girlfriend, I want to tell you this story, about Ruth or about these bad girls of the Bible or whatever.
Right,
and she just draws you in and makes them so human and relatable.
That's right.
And then, just personally, I mean, the people that I surround myself with, I have, everybody's got acquaintances and then friends and then really good friends. And you're blessed when you have even a small circle, 4 or 5 people that are praying for you. I mean, as I go forth and start to do these talks and stuff, I know that there are people who are on their knees praying for my health, for my safety. And those are my heroes, those people that give of their time and just invest in me, even just through prayer. I mean, it's not just, that's a huge, huge thing.
It is. And you are walking it and talking it every day. And your last point was resolve to stand on the promises. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Correct. What
are some promises that you're standing, Toni, on right now that you're believing for?
Well, again, Ephesians 3:20 is a life verse. He can do exceedingly abundantly more than you ask or imagine. And I think working on these talks, the 2 Timothy 1:7, that he has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline, or sound mind, whatever your translation is. I mean, that's powerful stuff.
It is.
When we think, I think about this so often, it's in Romans, and I'm not exactly sure what the thing is, but it's talking about how we have the same power that raised Christ from the dead is within us. And so we have this, Paul uses the word dynamite, was it dynamis? Which is like where we get dynamite from. I mean, It is an explosive power.
That's right.
And so when I am fearful about different things, about what I'm going to say or how people are going to perceive me, or, all that fear of man kind of thing. I mean, I just have to think, no, God has given me the power, and he is going to, he's going to speak through me, and what people need to hear, they will hear, as long as, like I said before, I trust, pray, and get out of his way. That's always my prayer. Don't, let them be your words, not mine. I don't want to get in the way of what you want to accomplish through me. That's right. So those are 2 big ones. Exodus 14:14 is always, that got me through some really difficult times. I'm not sure that I'm standing on that daily today, but it's, the Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. So that's actually good in any battle.
It is. That's right. And I can't wait to hear the resolve of that, because I think when women really understand that the person that is speaking in front of them are continually working through their faith, they haven't perfected it yet. No. You and I have not done that. And if we ever have perfected it, we're probably never going to get booked in another women's event ever again. Because we'll be related.
We'll be with Jesus. We can talk up there.
That's when we're perfected. You're exactly right. But I love when, and you can assess the crowd. You'll assess the room. You'll know that there's going to be a few that will really key in, and that will really be in total, I guess of the word I'm looking for is in touch with what you're speaking about. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have some that will come up to you after it's over, and they're going to want to tell you their story. Mm-hmm. And then that's when Toni Campbell really shines, because I have watched you in certain situations, even when you and I talk together, that you are a great great listener. Can you explain, and as we close here, how important it is as someone like yourself, being a benevolence director at a church, as well as a speaker and a writer, how important it is to be a good listener?
It's a game changer for some people. People are lonely. They don't feel heard. They have been hurt by the church or otherwise. There's so many reasons, but people today are so lonely. They are searching for something. They want to be heard. And so I think, the greatest thing we can do, like Job's friends, they did the right thing those first 7 days.
They sure did.
They just
sat with them. Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Sat with him in it, and then they blew it. So
it started off good, let's say.
After listening, if something needs to be said, on rare occasion, I will say, I understand what you're saying. I had something similar happen to me, like take encouragement from this because this is how things worked out, but you don't want to always make it, that starts to make it about you. So right. Listening, acknowledging how they're feeling, acknowledging their hurt or their loneliness or their need is very helpful. And then praying, because I don't have all the answers. And so and sometimes I will flat out say that is a hard place to be. I can't imagine what it's like for you to be dealing with that. And I really don't have any answers, but I know somebody who does. Amen. So we're going to take this to God, and we are just going to lay these requests at his feet. And, just know, I will tell people though, I believe that God sometimes tries to really teach us trust by not doing things on our timetable. He's an 11th hour God. So not that is, it feels like that to us anyway. Yeah, he's not just skidding in, but he has it planned all along, but it just feels like, I can't wait another minute, and he comes through. So I think that's really important. So many people just need to be heard and just need a chance to talk, but then they need to be pointed to the one who, because you can't be there all the time. They need to be pointed to the one who can always listen.
That's right. Well, on the bio of this episode, everybody's listening, you're going to have different links. I'm going to have a link for her book, Jesus Has Left the Building, on Amazon. I'll have a link for that. And then also you can check out her new book. Do we have an idea when the new book compilation is coming out? Is there any deadline that you know of, hopefully soon?
Probably the beginning of December, a little later than I would like, but in time to buy it for a gift right. for Christmas, right?
Oh, perfect gift. Faithful in Every Season by 9 authors. And of course, my favorite author in that compilation is Toni Campbell.
Thank you.
You're like the most famous, unfamous person I know. And I don't, isn't it sad that we have to, in a different realm, a music realm, is that we only think that the people that we quote have heard about are the most beautiful or the most great singers and songwriters. But I'm telling you, I meet more people all the time that can preach the wallpaper off the wall, write incredible books, and no one's ever heard of them. Mm-hmm. But I'm determined to make Toni Campbell famous somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to try.
Famous for Jesus, right?
Famous for Jesus. Yeah. And I think the title of this one's going to definitely be Trust, Pray, and Get Out of God's Way. What a great, great thing. I love you, Toni. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.